tonight. Southeast wind 15 to 20 miles per hour, shifting to the southwest late. Thursday, rain, highs around 44, south wind 15 miles per hour, just tonight, clean and slow.
Well, I thought of it like another way to do is that it's coming out clearly. As you get closer to it, it starts distorting so you can't hear it.
Okay, so here I'm going to show you how I put together the light resistant radio that I made for a theatre project. Basically it's an old radio that I bought. I installed a light dependent resistor in it, replaced the amp and sent the LDR signal to an Arduino, which then does some processing via max MSP and finally live to treat the sound. So you can see here what I've done. I've created this, I've made the amp kit, just 3 watts in here, and I've screwed that to the base plate of the battery pack to the amp just because it was convenient. So what I've done is I've actually taken the headphone socket that was originally in the radio and I've hacked that so I could use that for my audio input. So I've just connected 2 wires that go from what was the headphone socket but I've now used as my input. That's here, and I've taken 2 wires and that goes to the 2 input pins on my amp. Then I had to buy a 9-volt battery pack, which again you can just buy from any sort of electrical store. It's got a switch on it. I mean, in future what I'd like to do is create a switch and build it into the radio itself. It's just something that I haven't got around to yet. So then the power goes to the 2 power pins on the amp, and then the 2 output pins from the amp, they just go straight to the speaker here. Now what I did for the sensor, I drilled a little hole into the front of the amp, and if you can see here we've got a tiny light dependent resistor, and this is what controls the sound. This is what sends the signal to the Arduino, which then turns into to data via the Maxwino plugin and Max MSP, and then that sends essentially MIDI data to live eventually. But I glued that into the front of the amp, and then I just used a normal audio cable, which I actually just wired up to the plus and minus pins of the light dependent resistor, and then I built that into a stereo jack which I installed into the back of the amp, so I can plug a stereo cable into that, and then that will go to 2 different points on my breadboard to create the circuit which will send the data to the Arduino. Here you can see the circuit I built with the Arduino. So we've got the 5-volt pin that goes through the light dependent resistor, one side of it, and then we've got a 10k resistor just in the circuit just to attenuate the signal coming from the LDR, and then that goes back into the Arduino onto the analog control pin 1, which is here. Okay, so here I'm going to show you the software side of the light dependent radio that I've built. Basically it just runs a max patch. It's run through a max patch with the Maxwino patch that I downloaded for free online. And Maxwino is basically an interface that's built by an online community which takes raw data from the Arduino, and that turns it into OSC data for starters, and then I built a small patch around that which turns it into MIDI information. So first of all you need to open up this Maxwino interface, and you need to actually switch on the analog inputs that you have that you want the Arduino to recognise. Well, you want Maxwino to recognise. So first of all I can turn it on, and I can see that as I move my hand over the light dependent resistor in my radio, I'm receiving a signal. Now this is all the work that's been done by the people that run Maxwino, and it's available free online. Then what I've done is I've created a small patch around that which takes my analog inputs and translates it into MIDI information. So I've just added on a simple mute switch so that I can mute any information coming into the machine when I'm assigning my MIDI controllers. And then I've just created a small translate patch which allows me to translate the information from the 0 to 1 information which the Maxwino feeds me, and turns it into an integer value of 0 and 127, which I can then use for control data for Ableton Live. So essentially I've just created these two faders here, and this scales the information. So I use it to set the what the ambient light is in the room, because depending on how much light the resistor is receiving, obviously it will give a different result. So I find out, have a look at the light in the room, I see what reading I'm getting, and then I just set my minimum threshold here. And then if I just set it so that the ambient light creates 0, I can see that when I move my hand over it, it's then turning the information up here, which is the raw data that's coming from the Arduino via Maxwino, into a value of 0 to 127, which I can then use in live. So I'm sending this MIDI information out via the internal MIDI routing system on my Mac, just through the IAC driver, and then I use that as a remote source in live. So here I've created a small live set which basically has 2 audio tracks on. This is just an example of how I use my radio. Obviously you can send the information from the light dependent resistor to control anything that you want, but in this case we created a system where we wanted a spoken word sort of radio broadcast slowly merge into a song that we'd already recorded by a few of the singers in our production. So I've assigned the information that's coming into Max. First of all, if I unmute my input, I've assigned it to a crossfader over this side of Max, which basically has the 2 different audio tracks sending out the master output, which I've sent to A and B. And I've also assigned that same control data to the noise amount of an effects rack I built, which is called radio effects. So as I move my hand, or as any movement detected in terms of changing the light in front of the light dependent resistor, you can see that it does 2 things. It crossfades between the tracks, and it also adds a certain amount of this noise which I've created in my own little effects rack here. It's just a bunch of erosion plugins. So then now I'll show you the result.
Highs around 44, south wind 15 miles per hour, chance of rain 100%. Tonight, rain and snow. Slowly rising through the night, southeast wind 15 to 20 miles per hour, shifting to the southwest late. Thursday, rain. Highs around 44, south wind 15 miles per hour, chance of rain 100%. Tonight, rain and snow accumulations up to 2 inches, lows around 33, slowly rising through the night, southeast wind 15 to 20 miles.